Shiva. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashunvannuti Visida Sadanam Mahaganapataye Namaha. Welcome back to this session of the Bhagavad Gita. There are a lot of questions, so I'll first spend a few minutes discussing the questions, and then we will go to the Sthita Prajna Lakshana, which is the main topic of discussion today. First of all, there was a comment from Archana Srivatsaji day before yesterday, which I forgot to bring up yesterday. I had stored it in some other folder because I took a screenshot. So she had brought up an interesting point about Shraddha. So the word Shraddha basically refers to a reverential faith or a devotion. It is not blind belief in something. Right. So in her note, she says that means of knowledge is the Shastra, is learning from the Guru, learning from, divine intervention, all these things. But taking the words of your Guru is a matter of Shraddha. And it's based on certain reverential belief, but the knowledge itself is an experiential reality. Right. So this is what she has written is correct. So that is the right thing. When we go to a doctor, we are not experts in medical science. Let's say somebody like me, I'm not an expert in medical science. So when I go to a doctor and he prescribes a certain medicine, initially I take it on faith that this person has come highly recommended. Somebody who knows me very well has said that, hey, this is a good doctor. And I go to the doctor, take some medication. But if the medication doesn't work and I continue to go to the doctor, week after week, that is blind faith. Whereas the moment the medication doesn't work beyond a point, the doctor says, yes, you please take these pills 3 times a day. In 3 days, you will be fine. But after 2 weeks also, you are not fine and you are still struggling from the same disorder. Then you go to another doctor. So you had Shraddha on this doctor, but it did not work for whatever reason. Maybe the doctor was not an expert on something else and he had diagnosed the problem in a different way, whatever be the reason. But we don't stick to the same person. Even in the matter of our parents may advise, something. We listen to them and wherever it works, we continue. But if there is some advice which we think is not, right, or is an experiential reality for you, you don't need a validation. Now, somebody has gone and visited a city let's say you've traveled to New York City and you've seen Manhattan. You don't need any external validation to show that it exists. You don't need somebody telling you, yes, Manhattan is because you have experiential knowledge of that. So similarly, with any subject, when you know it, when you have the knowledge of it, then there is no need of any special belief or faith because it's a reality for you. One of you, I think Ashokji had a question about Atma Hatya. I had mentioned it in one of the earlier sessions. Atma can also mean body. Atma has many meanings. Atma can mean body. It can also mean spirit. So Atma Hatya in Hindi and Kannada, when we use this word, it means killing the body on it. It doesn't mean killing the soul, the killing the Atma. So Atma Hatya, here Atma means body. In Vedavyasji had a comment about the 49th shloka. Can this be interpreted as a result should not be the goal? Result should be a consequence of Nishkama Karma. Yes, so when Nishkama Karma also will have a result, right? So whenever you are doing certain activity, there will be a result. But when you are doing it without expectation of a specific result, when you're doing it without attachments, and you are pursuing that karma for its own sake, then you are not hassled by it. So there will be some consequence, there will be a result, but you are not hassled by it. That's all basically what it means. Then Professor Geeta Bali had a comment about samadhi in this verse on Sthita Prajna. So basically, samadhi in the is a word that comes from the yoga school of philosophy. There are six classical schools of philosophy, as you might all know. We have already heard about Sankhya. So Sankhya is one of the schools. Yoga is one of the schools. Similarly, we have other schools like Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Purva Mimamsa, and Vedanta. So these are the six classical schools. In that, one of the schools being yoga, the word samadhi comes from that. Samadhi basically means being firmly established in oneself, or it means perfectly, um, uh, you know, um, uh, being in oneself. So it's a state which is very similar to what we call as Jivan Mukta in the Vedanta school. It's a state where you don't need anything external. You are established within yourself, and you don't need additional external support. So basically, you are established firmly in yourself, in the Atma. That's what it means in this case as well. Okay, Aparna ji had a point about, she wanted to elaborate on this sutra, Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. When I think I had mentioned about this, but I'll just briefly speak about this. When we say Karma Yoga, what is Karma Yoga? It is working without expectations, working without focus on the result, but focusing on the work at hand. Why is this a smart approach to work? He says Karma Yoga is a smart approach to work. Karma so kaushalam. Because you're using all your mental energy to fulfill the activity at hand. You're not wasting even a little bit of your mental space fretting about the past or worrying about the future. So therefore, it's a very, very effective way of doing work, right? Just like how your new age life coaches will say, please keep your phone away when you're working. Why do you do that? If you want to seriously accomplish something, have no digital distractions, keep your phone away, put your internet off, lock yourself in a room and completely focus on an activity. Why do they say that? Because these distractions will reduce the efficiency of work. That's all it means. That your yoga karma so kaushala means karma yoga is a very smart approach to work, because you're using all your mental energy for the task at hand. There's another interesting point I forgot to mention yesterday when I was discussing Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, the 47th verse. Krishna tells Arjuna, right, that you can only control your actions, you can't control the results. And I told you that the word adhikara is the culprit. In the sense, the word adhikara has not done anything wrong. The way in which people interpret the word adhikara is erroneous. And the evidence for that is seen in one of the earlier verses itself, when Krishna tells Hato va prapsasi swargam jitva va bhokshase mahim. If you win, if you die, you will attain Virasvarga. If you win, you will enjoy the bounty. He has said, we have also seen that. Then he's talking about karma phala. He's talking about fruit of action. If you die, you will get Virasvarga. If you, win this war, you will enjoy this bountiful kingdom. That means what? He's saying you are going to get this result. So work for this result. Is it not? In a sense, he's saying this is what you're going to get, so work for it. He's not saying don't worry about the consequence of war. Just he's also saying that, but in this particular verse, he's saying Hato va prapsyasi swargam jitva va bhokshyase mahim. So specifically, he's giving a goal-oriented advice to Arjuna. So therefore, we understand that goals are also very important. If you don't have a goal, we will not be motivated. At the same time, after having worked so hard, if we don't get any results, then we will not get motivated to do more work, right? I always give a simple example. If you are inviting somebody as an organizer of a music concert, or you're inviting somebody for a dance program or for a lecture or whatever, if you are not going to pay them anything, if you're just going to, it's like a pro bono invitation, they will come once. They may come twice if they're a friend of yours. The third time, they will politely decline. Unless there is some other motivation, if there is no reward, people will not do it. This is human nature. This is what we have observed. I'm sure anybody here who has organized a program or invited somebody will know that people may come once or twice. The third time, they may not uh, uh, come for your invitation if you're an organizer. Whereas if you are giving some requisite amount, even if it is a small amount, if you're paying the musicians, you're paying the dancers or speakers, whatever you're organizing, there is a motivation for them to come back. That's one of the reasons I know many times when we discuss with my friends, I always insist on ensuring that people who are invited are remunerated in whatever way. Now, if I am a Ambani, I may give a golden chain. If whatever based on my means, I will give remuneration or give some gift or honorarium, whatever, to the person. But when we take the effort to ensure that the efforts are rewarded, people value that. So this is all we see around us, and Bhagavad Gita is very much something which is practically applicable. So although time and again Krishna talks about the ideal state, whether it is Sthita Prajna or the going beyond the gunas or being in a state of complete detachment. All these are ideals. But through the course of the discussion, again and again, he has got a very firm grip on reality. So therefore, definitely people expect rewards for their work. People have goals. It is good to set a goal. There's nothing wrong in expecting a reward. But like I said earlier, when we focus all our energies on the work at hand, that is more efficient in our day-to-day life. It makes us accomplish much more than a person who is always having the eye on the results. So that's why he says, pitiable are those who have their eye on the results at all times. Okay. So I think I've covered most of the question. There was one question on very specifically related to Vedanta by Nagendraji, which I'll respond to him on mail. Okay, so now let us get to the Sthita Prajna Lakshana. So Krishna, you remember yesterday we stopped at a point where Arjuna asks Krishna, who is a Sthita Prajna? How does he lead his life? How does he talk? How does he sit? How does he go about? What are the traits? What are the qualities and characteristics of Sthita Prajna? Then Krishna says, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyev atmana tushtaha sthita prajna stadochyate. When a person abandons all selfish desires and is satisfied within the true self, such a person is said to be of steady intellect. Such a person is said to be a sthita prajna. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Partha, Yada, when Sarvan Manogatan Kaman Prajahati, Sarvan, all Manogatan emanating from the manas or the mind, Kaman, all the desires, Prajahati, when he abandons all the desires that come from within, Atmana eva Atmani Tushtaha. The self is satisfied in the self. The person is satisfied within the true self. There is no need for any external, there is no external dependence. Tada, then sthita prajna uchyate. Then we call this person a sthita prajna. All desires are abandoned. There is no more selfish desires in the heart. And he is established within himself, or she is established within herself. There is no external dependency. This kind of a person is called a Sthita Prajna. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Prajahati yada kaman.
Prajahati yada kaman.
Sarvan Partha Manogatan
Sarvan Partha Manogatan
Atman Yevatmana Tushtaha
Atmanyev Atmana Tushta
Sthita Prajnastadochyate.
Sthita Prajnasta Dosyate.
Sthita Prajnah Tat Uchyate. So Sthita Prajnastadochyate.
Sthita Prajnasta Dosyate.
Okay. Then he says, Dukkheshvanudvigna manaha sukheshu vigataspраha vita raga bhaya krodha sthitadhir muni ruchyate. One who is not agitated by adversity, one who does not crave for pleasures, one who is free from passion, fear, and anger, such a person is a sage of steady intellect. Dukkheshu anudvigna manaha. So, in pain, in dukkha, in adversity, anudvigna manaha, a mind that is free from agitation. Sukheshu vigata sprihaha, in the middle of pleasure and comfort, vigata sprihaha, does not have any, he's not craving for pleasures. He's not craving for, sense enjoyments. So, despite being in sukha, he is not craving for anything. Despite being in dukkha, he is not agitated. So, dukkheshu anudvigna manaha, sukheshu vigata sprihaha, vita raga bhaya krodaha. He is rid of raga, which is excessive love or compassion or passion or attachment, bhaya, fear, krodha, anger. So, he is free from passion, fear, and anger. Sthitadhihi munihi uchyate. So he is a sage, he is a muni. He is a muni also means somebody who is silent, mauna muni. So a person who does not feel the need to say anything, he is fulfilled. He has no requirement to express his views and find some special place, nothing. He is fulfilled, he is happy with himself. So such a person is called as Sthitadhihi, a firm intellect. Dhi is intellect, so firm intellect. So a person, whenever there is adversity, it is natural for us to get agitated. It's natural for us to lose our cool, get troubled. So even in the middle of adversity, this person is not troubled. In the middle of all comforts, it is very natural for us to bask in that glory, bask in that comfort. He doesn't get too hassled about it because he knows both these things are temporary, right? So in in the early part of the second chapter, Krishna says these things will come and they go, and therefore you endure this. He talks about titiksha, forbearance or endurance of these temporary phases. So nobody will always have adversity throughout their life. Nobody will have all good things throughout their life. So there will be ups and downs. And even there are some people who say, "Oh, you don't know. There are people who are very wealthy, so they will always have comforts." That's not true. Just because you are wealthy, just because you have everything in the world, doesn't mean you're free from, because at the end of the day you still have a body. There will be some afflictions. Even the richest man will fall sick. Similarly, however poor you are, however whatever despicable conditions you are, at the end of the day, if you fall asleep, that is ananda, that is a state of complete fulfillment and joy. So even the poorest man has this gift of sleep, which is like a oasis in a desert. So like this, as long as there is body, there is both the positive and negative of it. So there will be dukkha, there will be sukha. So a wise person knows that this will come and go. So therefore, he is not agitated in times of adversity. He is not overjoyed or over attached in times of peace and comfort. So dukkeshvanudvigna manaha.
Dukkheshvanu Vignamaha
दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्न मनाः
दुःखेषनुद्विग्न मनाः
सुखेषु विगत स्पृहः
सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः
वीत राग भय क्रोधः
वीतरागभयक्रोधः
स्थितधीर मुनिरुच्यते.
स्थितधीर्मुनिर्उच्यते.
Very good. Then he says, Yas sarvatranabhi snehas tat tat prapya shubhashubham nabhinandati na dveshti tasya prajna pratisthita. He is detached in all matters. He neither rejoices nor hates the pleasant and unpleasant situations that he encounters. And such a person's intellect stands firm. Yaha, who sarvatra anabhisnehaha, a person who is detached, anabhisnehaha, who is detached all over, in all matters, sarvatra. Tat tat shubha shubham, shubha ashubha, shubha shubham prapya. Whenever he faces, whenever he attains shubha and ashubha, pleasant and unpleasant, or auspicious and inauspicious, agreeable, disagreeable situation, na abhinandati na dveshti. He is not overjoyed when something happens favorably to him. Na dveshti, he does not hate results that are unpleasant. He does not hate situations that are unpleasant. Tasya prajna pratisthita bhavati. So, such a person's intellect stands firm. Again, we see the practical implications of this. The moment the situation is suitable to us, is agreeable to us, if we start rejoicing and we forget our place, there is a chance of slipping, and losing our face. Similarly, when the adversity surrounds us, if we hate the situation, then we are making the entire experience unpalatable for not only for us, for people around us as well. So, for example, if we go on a journey somewhere, we go to for a holiday with our family or with friends, we're going to some place. Now, imagine there is this one guy in the group who's always complaining. Oh, the toilets are not clean. The bed sheet had some hole in it, and this food, the salt is less, and this and that. So anything that is unpleasant to him, he hates that situation, and he's forever in that mode. Naturally, the entire mood of the holiday gets disrupted. Similarly, there are some people who are over the top, say, oh my God, amazing, look at this fantastic thing. And I've never seen a place like this. Oh, this is the greatest vacation ever. You guys are the best. And then it's okay for like a moment, but throughout the journey, if somebody is constantly talking about that, you also get irritated. So like that, when we are going on a journey, we are traveling somewhere, we accept the reality. Sometimes the food will be good, sometimes there'll be a miserable hotel accommodation, sometimes the flight will be delayed, sometimes we may get upgraded to business class. So all these possibilities are there. But when you take these things as they come, what are you doing? You are using your mental space and energy for meaningful things. You are not using that mental space for needless things like rejoicing or hating. Both these things are not going to add any value. They are just extra. You are, using the energy and power of your brain for unnecessary things. Instead of that, you rather use your mental space and concentration and attention for useful things. That's all he's basically trying to say. He's detached in all matters, and whatever pleasant situation comes, he's not overjoyed. When an unpleasant situation comes, he does not hate it. This kind of a person has a steady intellect. Yaha sarvatran abhisneha.
यः सर्वत्रानभिस्नेहः
So abhisneha, when we add the two words, it becomes abhisnehas tat tat prapya. So the first line, if we just keep it as one line, yaha sarvatran abhisneha
यः सर्वत्राणाभिस्नेहः
tat tat prapya shubhashubham
तत् तत् प्राप्य शुभाशुभं
nabhinandati na dveshti
नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि
tasya prajna pratisthita.
तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता
यदा संहरते चायं कूर्मोऽङ्गानीव सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यस्तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. So this is a kind of a refrain which we will see. Tasya prajna pratishtita. His intellect is firmly established. He is a person of firm intellect. So in this verse, he says, when this person, Sthita Prajna, completely withdraws the senses from the sensates, just as a tortoise withdraws its limbs, his intellect stands firm. So if you remember, senses are the sense organs, right? The eyes, the nose, the tongue, the ears, the skin. And sensates are that which trigger the sense organ. Sight for the eyes, smell for the nose, a taste for the tongue, a sound for the ears, and texture for the skin. So when he withdraws the senses from the sensates, like a tortoise withdraws its limbs, his intellect stands firm. Which is a connection to the previous verse. Yada ayam kurmah angani iva. Just like a tortoise, anga is limbs. So angani iva sarvashaha indriyani indriyarthebhyah samharate. We withdraws indriyani, the different sense organs, indriyarthebhyah, from the indriyartha, which is the sensates. When he samharate, tasya prajna pratisthita bhavati. So just like a tortoise, it has four hands and its head and the tail, it withdraws everything inside the shell. So you can imagine like the five sense organs and the manas, all of them it withdraws within itself and focuses on the inner self. Then the intellect stands firm. So the more and more you are feeding the senses with the sensates, then more and more there will be attachment. When you are able to withdraw your senses from these sensates, the sensations will come down and there is a greater chance of detachment. Yada samharate chayam
यदा संहरते चायं
कूर्मोऽङ्गानीव sarvashah
कूर्मुङ्गानीव सर्वशः
indriyanindriyarthebhyah.
इन्द्रियानिन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः.
So it's indriyani indriya artha arthebhyah. So indriyani indriyarthebhyah
इन्द्रियानिन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः
tasya prajna pratisthita.
तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता
Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Although he abstains from feeding the senses by turning away from the sensates, the cravings for the sensation still remain. Even those cravings will leave him once he has realized the Supreme. So, niraharasya dehinah. So, the person who has abstained himself, nirahara, no, he is not feeding the senses. Niraharasya dehinah, vishayaha, rasavarjam. So, he has taken out all the rasa, he has taken out all the possible attachment of the senses and the sensates. Vinivartante was Vishayaha is the sensates, the different sensates. He is not feeding the sensates to the senses. किन्तु अस्य रसः अपि दृष्ट्वा स्थितस्य निवर्तते. Now, these there are still these cravings that remain with him, and param drishtva, having realized the supreme, asya rasaha api, even these rasa, even these cravings, nivartate, leave him. So in the previous verses he said, when he completely withdraws his senses and does not allow contact with the sensates, then his intellect stands firm. Now, the next he's saying, even though when we don't want to indulge in seeing something, so we close our eyes. So, what happens when we close our eyes? We are cut off from sight. When we close our eyes, we can't see anything. So, we are cut off from the sight. So, the sensates are not bothering the sense organ. But the craving to see still is there. So, there is always that craving which remains. So, when you may go on a diet, you may say, okay, I'm going to skip my dinner today, I'm going to skip my breakfast today, whatever. But after some time, that craving is still there, right? So when it is in the case of the body, the body has its own mechanism. It has to be fed at the right times. It must get physical rest at the right time. But when it's to do with the mind, it is possible to go beyond these physical limitations. So, therefore, a person who has attained the highest state, he does not have these cravings also. He is able to go beyond the cravings. But until he gets that escape velocity, he will always have the cravings, even though he may restrain himself. It becomes only a superficial restraint, it becomes a temporary restraint because the cravings are always there. At any point of time, one can um, go back to the old habits. So, therefore, it is important to abstain from feeding the senses. At the same time, that is not sufficient. You have to sustain on the path to ensure that the cravings for sensations don't persist. Vishaya vinivartante
विषया विनिवर्तन्ते
niraharasya dehinaha
निराहारस्य देहिनः
rasavarjam rasopyasya
रसवर्ज्यं रसोऽप्यस्य
param drishtva nivartate.
परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते
Nivartate. It's a short,
निवर्तते
yeah, nivartate. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. But is this easy? The turbulent senses forcibly distract the mind even of a wise person who is sincerely striving to control them. What a practical observation. Kaunteya, he says, yatataha, striving, one who is striving, yatataha api vipaschitaha, who is striving, a wise person, not some random guy who is trying. A vipaschitaha is trying, he is doing yatna. Yatataha api vipaschitaha purushasya manaha pramathini indriyani prasabham haranti ki. So the indriyani, the indriyas, the sense organs, prasabham, forcibly they distract, pramathini, they distract the manaha. Manaha pramathini, they distract the mind forcibly, even of a person who is wise. This is pretty straightforward, right? So the sense organs are so powerful that a person who is trying very hard, a sincere person who wants to meditate, who wants to cut away from this, he is also dragged forcibly into getting distracted, into getting attached to the sensates. These sense organs are this kind of very, very strong forces. That's why sometimes the metaphor is that the horses in a chariot are likened to the sense organs, because the horses are trying to run in different directions. They're trying to drag you, and it requires a lot of self-control and willpower to not let the sense organs drag you and make it turbulent. So, yatato hyapi kaunteya
यततो ह्यपि कौन्तेय
पुरुषस्य विपश्चितः
पुरुषस्य विपश्चितः
इन्द्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि
इन्द्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि
हरन्ति प्रसभं मनः.
हरन्ति प्रसभं मनः.
Then he says, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratisthita. Having restrained the senses, one should sit steadily seeking me, or in this case, seeking the Supreme. When senses are under control, only then does a person attain steady intellect. Tani sarvani samyamya yuktaha matparaha asit. Tani sarvani, all of them. What does he mean, all of them? In this case, all the senses. Tani sarvani samyamya, having brought under control, yuktaha, being united or being steady, matparaha, always focusing on me, focusing on the Supreme, asit, he should sit. So one sits down, focusing on the Supreme, and in yoga, having restrained all these sense organs. Yasya vashehi indriyani santi, tasya prajna pratisthita bhavati. So only when the indriyas are under vasha, under our control, then our intellect is said to be steady. Then only prajna will be pratisthita, will be firmly established. Pretty straightforward verse again. Tani sarvani samyamya
तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य
yukta asita matparaha
युक्त आसीत् मत्परः
vashe hi yasyendriyani
वशे हि यस्येन्द्रियाणि
tasya prajna pratisthita.
तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता.
Dhyayato vishayan pumsah sangasteshupajayate sangat sanjayate kamah kamat krodho vijayate. Continues, krodhat bhavati sammohah sammohat smriti vibhramah smriti bhramshad buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. So these are two verses linked to each other. When one is preoccupied with sensations, he gets easily attached to them. From this attachment, a desire to attain them is born. Unfulfilled desires lead to frustration and anger. This anger and frustration leads to confusion. Confusion impairs our power of discretion. Lack of discretion destroys the power of reasoning. And without the power of reasoning, a person is doomed. So you see this beautiful Karanam Alankara where one leads to the other. He says, Vishayan dhyayataha pumsaha. When men are focused on the sensates, they are always obsessed or they are preoccupied with the sensates. Teshu sangaha upajayate. One gets attached to them. Sangha, attachment. Teshu, they in them, upajayate is born. So the attachment to these sensations are born. Sangat kamaha sanjayate. Once you have this attachment, once you have this close proximity, then a desire to attain it surfaces in us. So the kama, which is desire or lust or craving, it gets triggered. Then kamat krodaha abhijayate. So how does desire lead to anger? If your desires are fulfilled, you will be happy. What is the meaning of kamat krodaha abhijayate? Desires can be fulfilled only to a point. All our desires can never be fulfilled. It is not possible because desires are free. It doesn't cost you anything to have dreams. It doesn't cost you anything to want something. There is no end to our wants. If you want to supply something, there is a limit. So I told you about the four purusharthas, right? So first is the kama, the desire or the enjoyment of desire. No, this desire is infinite, whereas artha, the means to fulfill the desire, is finite. There are only few, like you may want to have some huge amount of money, but there is only so much of money in the world. There's only so much of land. There is only so much of resources available. Whereas my desire can be, I may want to desire to own the universe. I may want to desire, I may have a desire to travel everywhere. I want to go to visit Mars. I want to visit Pluto. Can I visit? No, it's practically not possible. We don't have the technology. It's not, resources are not there. So desires are infinite. Therefore, it can never be fulfilled. There will, at some point of time, our desires will not be fulfilled. So, therefore, unfulfilled desires lead to anger and frustration. That's what he's trying to say when he says, Kamat krodha abhijayate. Krodhat sammoha bhavati. So, when you have anger and when you have frustration, what happens? You get confused. You get, you're in a daze. Even in our daily life, somebody who's very angry, they don't know what they're saying. They lose momentarily lose a sense of where they are, right? So lack of composure. So all this frustration and anger leads to confusion. And what does confusion do? Confusion impairs discretion. Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. So smriti means memory. But also here it's a sort of discretion, what to be done, what not to be done. So from your memory, from your training, you know that this is the right thing to do at this particular time. You know how to be appropriate in the different situations. But when you are in the grips of sammoha, the smriti vibhramaha, so you have completely lost your sense of discretion. And smriti bramshat buddhi nashaha, your intellect, your reasoning is destroyed when you have lack of discretion. And buddhi nashat pranashyati, when you don't have buddhi, when you don't have reasoning, you are destroyed, completely gone. So you can see how one lead to the other so beautifully. He has built the case for sensations leading to attachment, leading to desire, unfulfilled desire leading to anger and frustration, that leading to a confusion and lack of discretion. Lack of discretion destroys reasoning and intellect and rational thinking, objective seeing of the world, and that destroys completely the person. If somebody doesn't have buddhi, doesn't have the power of reasoning, he is doomed. That's the end of him. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha.
Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha.
Sangasteshupajayate.
Sangasteshupajayate.
Sangat sanjayate kamaha.
Sangat sanjayate kamaha.
Kamat krodho bhijayate.
Kamat krodho bhijayate.
Krodhad bhavati sammohaha.
Krodhat bhavati sammohaha.
Sammohat smriti vibhramaha.
Sammohat smriti vibhramaha.
Smriti bhramshad buddhinasho.
Smriti bhramshad buddhinaso.
Buddhinashat pranashyati.
Buddhinashat pranasyati.
Then he says, Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaischaran atma vashyair vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati. However, a self-disciplined person who has subdued his senses and is devoid of attraction or aversion remains peaceful even as he encounters sensates. Vidheyatma tu raga dvesha viyuktaihi atma vashyaihi indriyaihi vishayan charan prasadam adhigacchati. So vidheyatma, a self-disciplined person, a person who has controlled himself, indeed, raga dvesha viyuktaihi, raga and dvesha, uh, love and hate, passion and distaste, attraction, aversion. So he is viyukta. So yukta is joined, viyukta is separated. So he is detached from raga and dvesha. He is devoid of attraction and aversion. Atma vashyaihi. He has controlled himself. Atma vashyaihi indriyaihi. So he has controlled his indriyas by the power of his will. So Atma vashyaihi indriyaihi. Vishayan charan. So these vishaya, that is the sensates, sight and smell and taste and texture and sound, these sensates are coming and going, but he remains peaceful. Prasadam adhigachati. He has attained a state of peace. These sensates will keep coming and going. It does not bother him anymore. He has reached a state because of self-control. It doesn't matter. So raga dvesha viyuktaistu.
Raga dvesha viyuktaistu
Vishayan indriyais charan.
vishayan indriyais charan
Atma vashyair vidheyatma.
atma vashair vidheyatma
Prasadam adhigachati.
prasadam abhigachati.
Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanir asyopajayate prasanna chetaso hyashu buddhi paryavatishthate. In that eternal peace, all his pains are destroyed because the intellect of the serene person soon becomes established in the self. Prasade sati, in that peace, in that state of serenity, prasade sati is like we have to add it, being in that eternal peace. Asya sarva dukkhanam hanihi upajayate. So all his pains and troubles are eliminated. Prasanna chetasaha, somebody who is very delighted and happy within a serene peace, right? So that prasanna chetasa is a person who has attained that kind of joy, inner joy. Prasanna chetasaha hi buddhihi, the intellect of this person, ashu, very quickly, immediately, paryavatishtate, it gets established very firmly in oneself. So the previous verse talked about how the person of self-control is peaceful despite the different sensates coming and going. He does not get affected by it. And once he's established in that state of peace, then all his pains and troubles and dukkha, all the travails, they just go away from him. And very quickly, he is firmly established within himself. Prasade sarva dukkhanam.
Prasade sarva dukkhanam
Hani rasyopajayate.
hani rasyopajayate.
Prasanna chetaso hyashu.
Prasanna chetaso jyasu.
Buddhi paryavatishthate.
Buddhi paryavatishthate.
Then he's going to the next. He says, Nasti buddhi rayuktasya na chayuktasya bhavana na cha bhavana yatah shantir shantihi ashantir ashantasya kutas sukham. One who is not disciplined lacks wisdom and focus. Without focus, one cannot attain peace. And without peace, how can one be happy? Ayuktasya buddhihi na asti. A person who is ayukta, who is not in yoga, who is not disciplined, who is not able to unite body and mind. Ayukta. Ayuktasya buddhihi na asti. He lacks buddhi, he lacks wisdom, he lacks intellect, he lacks the focus. A person who is not disciplined will not land up in a state of focus and wisdom. Ayuktasya cha bhavana na. So a person who is not focused, how can he become peaceful? How can he become serene? Abhavayatah cha shantihi naha. A person who is not focused, a person who does not have that so here bhavana should be taken as sort of focus. A person who does not have that focus, who does not have buddhi, wisdom, how can he become peaceful? Abhavayatah cha shantihi na. He does not get peace. And ashantasya kuta sukham. A person who does not have peace, how can he be happy? Sukha in this case is like comfortable, happy. A person who is not peaceful, how can he be comfortable and happy and satisfied? He'll always be unhappy. So, what is the root for happiness in this verse? He says, when somebody is disciplined, yukta, a person of discipline and self-control, naturally develops wisdom and focus. If one is not able to focus, when we say focus in this case, bhavana, what he's talking about is you're not worrying about the past and the future. You're able to focus on the work at hand, then you can be peaceful. That focus and that wisdom will lead to shanti. Without shanti, without peace, how can you be happy? Very simple and beautiful verse again. So, nasti buddhir ayuktasya.
नास्ति बुद्धिर्अयुक्तस्य
न चायुक्तस्य भावना.
न चायुक्तस्य भावना
न चाभावयत शांतिः.
न चाभावयतः शान्तिः
शांतिः.
शान्तिः
अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्.
अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्.
Okay. Then he says, Indriyanam hi charatam yan manonu vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayur navam ivam bhasi. Another beautiful imagery. When the mind is led astray by the wandering senses, then it carries away one's wisdom just as the wind carries away a ship off its chartered course. So, charatam hi indriyanam. This charata is like this dynamic and constantly moving, wandering senses. Like I told you, the senses are dragging the mind in different directions. So, this charatam hi indriyanam yat manaha anuvidhiyate. When it is led astray by these wandering senses, tat asya prajnam. Then the intellect of such a person, vayuhu ambhasi navam iva harati. Vayu is the wind, ambhasi in the waters, in the ocean, navam, boat, iva is like harati, it drags, it carries away a ship. So in the water, in the ocean, just like the wind carries away a boat that is not controlled, if you let go of the boat and leave it to the forces of nature, the boat will go in the direction of the wind. So the wind will take the boat away from the chartered course. Similarly, the senses can distract the mind away from the chartered course, and one's wisdom gets carried away. Indriyanam hi charatam.
Indriyanam hi charatam
Yan manonu vidhiyate.
yan manonyu vidhiyate
Tadasya harati prajnam.
तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञाम
Vayurnavam ivambhasi.
वायुर्नावम इवाम्भसि.
Okay, so we'll stop here. We have another 5 shlokas to go in the second chapter, which we will quickly finish tomorrow morning or evening, depending on where you are. And the rest of the session tomorrow, we will revise the second chapter. Like I told you, it's one of the finest chapters in Bhagavad Gita, which is got a lot of practical advice. At the same time, there are great ideals set before us. Okay, so there are two questions. Yeah, correct. 66 Shloka, Hamsa is Karanamala. That's what is called, I believe. Karanamala Alankara, where one leading to the other. So 66th also is like that. So without discipline, without the self-control, one cannot get wisdom, one cannot get focus. Without focus, one cannot get peace, and without peace, one cannot be happy, right? So that's also can be called a Karanamala. Okay. So according to Krishna, what is discipline? There is a question from Padma Shri ji. So we will discuss this in greater detail in the 6th chapter. When we say in this direct this thing, when we say discipline, basically it is trying to be in the moment, not allowing the sensations to take over our intellect. If we are able to take decisions without being swayed by emotions, without being uh, troubled by the sensory distractions, then we are disciplined. If we don't allow ourselves to get lost in the uh, um, emotional turbulence because of the situations, we are more driven by the internal focus, then it is discipline. Okay. Sunil Kavale has a question. In verse 256 and 57, how does one draw a line between not feeling any emotions in adversity and joy and being in a sthita prajna state? I do not think that the verse means that we should not express emotions. So, can you give some practical example? That's right. What you say is right, Sunil. That we are not trying to delete our emotions, because to express ourselves is the most natural thing, definitely. What he is trying to say when he says Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan and dukkheshu anudvignavanaha is that um, we will have emotions, we will have certain reactions to it. But if we can train ourselves to deal with the situation in a more composed manner, that makes our quality of life better. So there will be emotions, but in the face of adversity, if we are able to stay calm, then it is better for us. We become more efficient. It is better for survival, better for longevity, better for our quality of life. And it's something that we can definitely train ourselves. Now, if we see so many times people who are in professions like doctors and lawyers, firefighters, ambulance drivers, so people who are dealing with emergency, police, men, army personnel, all these people have trained themselves to be able to deal with diversity, to be able to deal with adversity in a better way, right? When I was young, when I used to watch cricket a lot, and there is a thrilling last few overs, right? And India has got 20 runs to win from one over or something. I would not be able to control my emotion. I'm so tensed. What's going to happen? Come on, we need to hit those runs, whatever. But the cricket players themselves, whether it's Tendulkar or Dhoni or Dravid or Lakshman, they will be smiling and playing, as if nothing is happening, because they have trained themselves for this kind of adversity. Whereas we have not trained ourselves. We are so emotionally attached to this result. So we are in the edge of our seat. But for the cricket players, they are used to this kind of situation. Oh, we have to score 28 runs in one over. Okay, we will see what are the strategy we can do. Seen this situation, they are trained for it. So if they become nervous, they cannot perform. So they are not nervous. We are, as viewers, we may be nervous, but they are trained not to do that. So like that, we can train ourselves not to be swayed by emotions, and to deal with things in a more logical and sensible way. Indriyarthebhyah. So Rajeshwari ji said Indriyarthebhyah. When Indriyarthebhyah joins with the next part of it, it becomes Indriyarthebhyas. Then it goes on. So it's when we make the sandhi, it becomes like that. That's all. Okay. So I think we have run out of time. So we will meet tomorrow and finish the rest of the verses of the second chapter, and we will take up a discussion on the summary of the second chapter. Om Tat Sat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashok ji, for
Thanks, Shlokas.
reciting.
You're
Thank
most welcome. Thank you for the